Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this webinar from ASSOCHAM on Aatma Nirbhar in oil and gas. And this is a very important segment of the economy. And as we know, we are all going through some unprecedented time in view of the uh, pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and at least in our lifetime, we had never seen anything like this. And in terms of the initial disruption, it was unprecedented. The uh, oil demand fell more than 50% in the initial strict form of the lockdown that we had, and gradually it had a smart recovery as the lockdown was removed. But what we have seen in recent times is that there are signs of again some kind of stagnation. And globally also, if you see, what we are expecting is probably even by the end of the year, the oil demand will be around minus 11 to 13 million barrel, so which actually takes away many years of demand growth. So that creates a huge challenge for all the players in the oil and gas segment. If you look at our economy after the shock of the Q1 GDP numbers, which fell by minus 23%, again, not heard of in our lifetime. Or by all predictions, even if the lockdowns were to completely get opened up, by all prediction, FY21 we are expecting minus 9 to minus 11% kind of contraction of GDP. At the same time, it's also everybody is unanimous with the fact that FY22 will be, a good year with a lower base, and probably economy will expand by similar number, which will bounce back to the extent of 10 to 12%. But overall, what it is doing is the creating so much of disruption in the marketplace. Every player is going to look at their own strategy. Every sovereign government is looking at their own strategy, and right, rightly so. Honorable Prime Minister has said that this is an opportunity for India to become self-sufficient, or what he coins it, Aatma Nirbhar. And that's a segment, that's a kind of a ch- ch- taking the challenge into an opportunity. And in our particular sector, there are many such opportunities which we were to avail in every segment. So I welcome an esteemed panel of experts today. First of all, Honorable Joint Secretary MOPNG, welcome, sir, Sunil Kumarji. And to introduce you, I think I was pretty, pleasantly surprised to see that you are actually a petroleum engineer. Many of us who work in the segment actually are not petroleum engineers. So that gives you a very good, grounding in terms of the nuances of the industry. So, and in the segment that you are responsible for in the policy making space, which are refineries, auto fuel policy, petrochemical. In fact, the other segments, like also very exciting segments like biofuel, a lot of things are happening in the policy space in that sense. In fact, the whole idea of India's refining capacity, ultimately what we need is 450 million metric ton. That's being revisited. But last week, BP had their statistics. It talks about how Indian growth story will probably not reach the level of 10 million barrel per day, and probably plateau before that. That creates a challenge in terms of how do you plan for refining capacity. At the same time, crude to chemical is a hot story globally. At the same time, biofuel government has been coming up with huge amount of policy boost. So what the format that we would go with today is, I think, sir, we will start with an opening remark from you, sir. Then we will move to, then I'll request Darshan to have his opening remarks. Then we will have experts from each segment in terms of upstream, midstream, downstream. I'll introduce each of the experts at their respective session, and then we will move to their session. Then, time permitting, last 20-25 minutes, we will have an open house. So over to you, sir, for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Debashish. All esteemed panelists, I'm sorry for the delay because of the technical thing. And I'll start with, first of all, thank ASSOCHAM for organizing this webinar on the role of oil and gas in Aatma Nirbhar Abhiyan. Prime Minister on May 2020 announced his vision of Aatma Nirbhar. It was a more encompassing than Make in India campaign, which started in 14. This vision focuses on providing impetus to Make in India initiative and transforming local Indian companies into global brands. And this opportunity of this COVID, which has broken down the global optimized chain and given people to think again that what is a right mix of local and global capabilities. Even countries like France, Germany, who had outsourced most of their manufacturing, are now planning to have some percentage of local manufacturing also. So this pandemic also gives India a great opportunity, in my opinion, to redraw and rethink and make India a hub for investment, manufacturing, and developing our own capability. The intent of PM's Aatma Nirbhar Bharat is to facilitate investment, foster innovation, enhance skill development, protect intellectual property, and build best-in-class manufacturing infrastructure in the country. The approach is to create a conducive environment for investment, develop modern and efficient infrastructure, and open up new sectors for foreign capital. MOPNG has PSUs whose capex this year is around 100,000 crores of rupees as capex only. So there's a lot of opportunity in this field for vendors, manufacturers, as well as people who are planning to set up business in India or expand their capacity. There has been tremendous growth in refineries, pipeline, gas terminals, storage capacity, gas cylinders, retail outlets, etc., to cater to demand of oil and gas in the country. This industry, however, employs cutting-edge technology and deals with hazardous chemicals and products. So it requires a very stringent quality standards. And that's why the vendors and goods and service providers need a longer time and have a very few reputed Indian vendors or service providers in the sector. So we are looking forward to develop many more local capabilities in this area. The high value capital equipment and services are often not available domestically. So I urge domestic manufacturers who are participating in the webinar to join us in developing the capacity and quality to meet the oil industry demands. This will not only lower the imports and boost exports of high value capital in future, but also it will use this pandemic to reset the scale and be self-reliant in this area. This is a long time consuming process, and that's why ministry has continuously engaged in process of creating an ecosystem conducive to the growth of Indian industry, promoting import substitution and self-reliance. PSUs under ministries, they are taking several initiatives to boost local manufacturing. I will list some of them. One of them is purchase preference policy while procurement. There is a purchase preference given of around 10 to 15% for people who have a local content of some more percentage. For example, for manufacturing of some drilling bit or something, if our local manufacturers has a local content of more than 30 to 40%, he gets a purchase preference. Purchase preference means suppose his quoted rate is within the band of the preference, he is asked to match the lowest
Sir, I think we lost your audio. Sir, I think we lost your audio, please.
Eligible in the tenders. Another very important, which is recently under the guidance of Secretary
Audio issues.
started, that we are building a portal which will contain the database of all the items we need in coming 5 years. Capex item as well as maintenance and repair items also. So earlier these items list were scattered in all the PSU's website or in their files or in their procurement divisions. But now all are being compiled, standardized, and they will be kept on a portal. This portal will be accessed by all stakeholders, so that it gives anybody who wants to expand their capacity, they want to invest in some area, they will have a database that they will have some business intelligence. What is the likely demand is going for this particular item? This will be very exhaustive with all the details of items and categories, with drawing, design, etc. Everything. So it will be ready in around 6 months' time, and it will be. We are planning to do it slightly early so that we start with a limited number of items, and then we'll keep on adding. For this, our oil public sector units are also having manufacturers meets also from time to time. This has also started from a couple of months back, and every month we have a focused meeting also. Last week we had a meeting on gas meters and long radius bends in refineries, for which we have very few local vendors or capacity both. And also in the sector where only 2 players exist, even manufacturers without PTRs are being allowed to develop prototype with handholding. So PSU are giving all assistance and all help to new vendors, new entrepreneurs who can join this very cutting edge and very important industry. Finally, from a ministry, I can assure that we are committed to contribute and assist all stakeholders toward an endeavor towards Aatma Nirbhar Bharat. That's what I can add. We can take a question answers on that, but we are committed and we are committed to make India as a manufacturing hub, especially in oil and gas sector. And I once again thank ASSOCHAM for this webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir. That's very encouraging in terms of the steps and specific interventions that the government is facilitating. The whole idea about listing out all the capexes and all the procurements in one particular portal, it really creates that visibility among many MSMEs also. Because the kind of, like you rightly said, sir, if 100,000 crores is the capex, and it is in this kind of time where the private investment are dried up, this is kind of opportunity for many MSMEs to avail that and really make world-class manufacturing possible in India. Darshan, I will, you don't need any introduction from, at least from my side, because we know each other for a long time. I met Darshan when he was probably 23-year-old. He was developing this exciting project in Dubai, and I have seen him for last whatever how many ever years, I think 12 13 years now. Yes, enormous amount of energy and enthusiasm. He is developing and a 4 million metric ton floating LNG terminal on the west coast. It's almost there, and the pandemic has hit us, but otherwise it would have gone online already. There's already a 3 million metric ton floating LNG terminal in the east coast. He has been very active in providing policy input for policymakers, regulators in every forum. So, Darshan, over to you to set the context.
No, thank you, Debashish. That's very kind. So first, sir, on behalf of ASSOCHAM, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and your kind and illustrative words. Thanks to Debashish for agreeing to moderate the session, panelists and sponsors, and all the members of ASSOCHAM who are attending this webinar, and of course, Jay and his team and all the colleagues who put this together. So thank you, everyone. Sir, I wanted to take this opportunity to actually discuss two or three things, much more on the policy side. Firstly is I think everybody who is invested in this sector, the big gorilla in the room is make everything in GST. We are really struggling with that, and I know it's politically a hot potato, but just because it's a hot potato, please don't lose sight of it. So that's our first and earnest request. Every day, every minute, we can keep pushing. We want people to realize that just because we are making do with our really difficult situation doesn't mean that it is right or fair. So that's an area we'd like some assistance to continue. So
Is the
second area
internet not working here or what?
Rajiv, we can hear you. Hello. Yeah. So I think the second bit is relating to the overall situation of COVID, where some representation from Petroleum and Natural Gas Ministry must go to RBI and Finance. So there are 2-3 tweaks we need. One is some consideration for even our sector to get benefits under the one-time restructuring. We have not got any mention there, and we are 15% of India's GDP. We also need help. Or members need help. So not just the big end refineries, terminals, pipelines, but even the vendors in this industry need help. So the second part is we also need some help in terms of permission of using dollar debt. We need to be able to refinance our dollar debt, as well as where we have dollar-based incomes. OMCs are allowed to get dollar debt without hedging. We request the same, and with your permission, sir, I'll send you a note with a little more details of these items so we can study and discuss it. That's matter 2. And sir, I just wanted to use this opportunity to discuss matter 3, which is I'm really excited with this common portal and putting up of the items. I think it's really very helpful. There is an area, sir, we need a lot of help, which is in skilling. So skilling is an issue where today I can tell you on my site in Jaigad, where we are building this pipeline, we are paying even welders who are getting 40,000-50,000 rupees salaries. There are shortage of welders. We want to roll out petroleum pipelines. We want to roll out gas pipelines. We want to roll out product pipelines. We don't have the skills enough of skilled manpower in the country to do the kind of rollout that we are looking to do. So we have to try and create, and ultimately leadership will come from the ministry, but we will participate it in every way. And we have huge number of members across the board in all the trade organizations, leaders in the oil and gas industry, whether PSU, whether private sector. I wouldn't differentiate. We have great talent. So we have to create a train the trainers program, and this skill development has to percolate for vocational training. We need more plumbers, fitters, electricians, welders, all in the oil and gas space in very large numbers. We have a problem, sir. We don't have an unemployment problem. We have an unemployable problem currently. There is no shortage. People are crying for labor across the board. And as you correctly said, the safety requirements of the oil and gas sector are very high. So we need the right training, right certificate programs, and we need some kind of holistic plan which is led. And as private sector, we can voluntarily participate, we can mandatorily participate, but it's an important part of nation building that is there, and I think we should live with that. So the last bit I want to trouble you with is because you are equally impacted in this, is the Petroleum and Mineral Pipelines Act. So this act is too old and outdated, and the ROUs for projects are just not coming. We need a huge revamp in the PNMP Act, and we have already made one representation to government, because there was an announcement, there was a news article where Prime Minister had made one announcement on the gas on the laying of ROUs. We use that opportunity and we have made a representation to PNGRB, to the Prime Minister's office, and to the Ministry of Petroleum. We want to send that back to you so that you all can take this up, because ROU is a huge constraint for our completion of major cross-country projects, and that policy change has to happen. So these are 4 points, and I don't want to trouble you with more, and I'll hand it over to the people. But thank you once again for helping us. Over to you, Debashish.
Just I missed your fourth point about that PMP Act. You had sent some suggestions. So if you can resend it to me, because we are working on that.
Wonderful. So I will do that.
That's very encouraging. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So over to you, Debashish.
Yeah, so thanks, Darshan. That really captures the high level and very critical demand of the industry. We would now go segment by segment, and I would like to request the the panelists to keep it brief so that we are left with some amount of time for discussion at the end. So I'll request Rakeshji, who represents Kane India, India's largest private sector upstream company, and which has been really it's quite encouraging to see them participate in the entire E&P activity and licensing rounds which has been happening. But it's a very challenging environment, as we all know. Oil, of course, crude has bounced back. Yesterday I saw WTI was 39, Brent was $41, but it's still a very challenging environment. They have also some specific requests from the policymakers in terms of encouraging more domestic production and cutting down on the imports of crude, which has almost reached now 85% of our requirement is imported. At the same time, even gas, almost 60% of the requirement is imported. So over to you, Rakeshji, to present a view, industry view on the upstream side. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Debashish, and thank you, Sunilji and Darshan, for your opening remarks. So I just wanted to take us to how India needs to move towards the Aatma Nirbhar for the upstream sector. So the 5 key pillars, just a recap on the Aatma Nirbhar Bharat, was quantum jump in economy, infrastructure for a modern India, technology-driven systems, vibrant demography, and demand. And I think government is clearly committed to make bold reforms to go with the Make in India concept. The current pandemic has impacted the economy hard, and it has also impacted the upstream sector. Currently, we are facing the challenge of a low oil price and additional compliances due to COVID. And this definitely calls for collaboration between the government and the companies. So last 4 years, we have seen a tremendous kind of policy reforms in terms of the upstream sector. We have got help coming out. We had got PSC extension policies. We had enhanced recovery and improved recovery incentive schemes. We had a lot of PSC reforms. We had a self-certification process. Government came out with 5 OLP rounds and 2 DSF rounds successfully. But in spite of all of that, we have seen a decline in the production in the last 7 years. Annual imports have increased to almost $130 billion. And the demand is continuing to increase at the rate of 4 to 5% per annum. While we were self-sufficient in natural gas until 2002, we currently import more than 50%. Oil imports have increased from 75% to 85% in the last 4 years. Oil and gas is still about 36% of the total primary energy demand. The domestic production largely comes from the national oil companies and the PSCs. And this calls for more reforms where we are in the current state. It is not that India has got a lesser potential in terms of the upstream sector. So if you go by the statistics that we have in hand, only 29% of the reserves have been tapped so far, and 71% of the area remains unexplored. So whatever we have discovered so far, only 2 billion metric tons of oil equivalent is left to be produced. And as per the statistics, 30 billion is yet to be discovered. Out of the total acreage of 33.65 lakh square kilometers across the 26 basins, only 7% acreage is currently doing upstream oil and gas business, and the remaining 93% is not there at all in form of any activity. So what we should aim at as a country is at least 10% per annum growth to meet this shortage of domestic production. And that is how we will be able to reduce our import dependency. If we are unable to achieve at least this, then we will see just the import bill rising year after year. So we have to move towards a lot of progressive policies, resolve legacy issues and administrative hurdles, and bring in uniform fiscal regimes. The revenue sharing contracts which have recently been brought out by the OAL are, I think, very, very business friendly and will support. So what government can look at is reforming the existing contracts, and some of our suggestions are just which we want to highlight are as below. So first thing, it is not in any kind of sequence of priority, but in terms of whatever we felt was is good for the existing oil and gas production to improve from where we are today. So first thing is the oil cess is currently applicable only up to the pre-NEL blocks. So that was after 1997, government decided there will be no cess on the NELP and the OAL blocks which have been awarded. In the current price regime, where we have reduced the oil price from $65 to a $40 oil price, I think cess is something that the government should seriously look at in terms of either abolishing it completely or at least linking it with the oil price movement, because these are upfront levies which basically makes all our projects unviable. Similarly, royalty for pre-NEL blocks are at a 20% as compared to a 12.5% for the NELP blocks. There is an ambiguity on the GST whether it is applicable or not on royalty. Government should come out with some clarifications on that. So oil and gas companies in India will get a level playing field only if royalty and cess is taken care. Our friends have already discussed about the GST impact on the cost of our production. So currently upstream faces almost 8 to 10% cost increase on account of GST. The incentive schemes that were announced during 2018 for the enhanced recovery and the improved recoveries at 50% cess waiver is actually not enough. So if you see the current oil price, probably these policies were announced when the oil price was $60–65 per barrel. But at a $40 oil price, this 50% cess waiver is not enough. So government should look at a 100% cess waiver. There have been clarifications given by the government on the exploration in mining lease area is possible, but the cost recovery mechanism still remains unclear. There have been recent reforms have been made to the marketing of oil and gas as well as ease of doing business through self-certification circulars. I think some remaining issues needs to be addressed, particularly with respect to the pre-NEL blocks to make these foolproof. There are a lot of contract interpretation issues in our PSCs, and government should be more and more supportive towards investment and production focused rather than revenue focused over here. And in terms of whatever OAL blocks have been awarded, a lot of statutory clearances are a concern, particularly in the environment and the defense area where exploration is getting derailed. So if you have to expedite exploration operations, the environment and defense issues needs to be sorted. To summarize oil and gas reforms for Aatma Nirbhar Bharat, so we are talking about accelerating exploration activities, including unconventional, enhancing production from discovered and the matured fields where we will get the maximum success in terms of immediate kind of revenues to the government as well as the oil companies, resolving the contractual issues in terms of the interpretations, reviewing the fiscal levies and incentives to promote investments, allowing self-certification and removing all kind of administrative hassles, and then streamlining statutory clearances. To end the speech, I would just want to say we are committed to deliver long-term value to the government, community, and the nation at large. And we look forward that our suggestions will be considered favorably for the upstream oil and gas so that we can move towards Aatma Nirbhar Bharat. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rakesh. That was pretty specific request, and definitely if India wants to increase its upstream production, the players in that segment really needs encouragement from the policymakers. I'll then request Manuji to come in. He is no stranger to the sector, having worked with HPCL and also under the ministry he has worked in PPAC. And that gives him a very ringside view of what is happening in that space. Currently, he heads strategy for HMEL. So over to you, Manuji, on the midstream, what we call, I think midstream, but you clarified you're going to talk about refineries particularly. So. Excuse me, is there a problem with the audio, or I'm the only one who's not able to hear?
We can hear you.
Manu sir is, yeah. Sir, he is on mute. Manu sir, please unmute yourself. You are self-muted, sir.
I think it's frozen.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
we can hear him now.
Yeah. Please.
Are you able to hear, Devashish?
Yeah, loud and clear, Manuji.
Thank
Please,
you. Thank you,
go ahead.
Devashish,
Yeah.
and thank you, ASSOCHAM, for having invited us for sharing our thoughts as a refiner in this country. Mr. Sunil Kumar, Mr. Darshan Imnandani, and other esteemed panelists. I'll talk a little bit about Indian refining industry and what is the current environment and how do we see what's going to happen in the future. Well, if you look at the Indian industry, it has a long history. I mean, we started off in 1901 with Big Boy, and initially the whole sector was private. I think in the 70s, the refineries then turned into public, and all refineries were public. And I think 1998 or 1996, 97, you can say, changes started to emerge in the industry. We had first MRPL come in the joint sector at that point of time. And then 1998, deregulation in the refinery. And then we had a host of new refineries come in. We had RIL, and then Naira, SR earlier, Bina, HMEL, Paradeep, and many others. At the end, 1998, we were about 100 million metric tons. We were importing both crude and products. And today, we are 250 million metric tons, almost 2.5 times. And we are actually exporting 50 million tons of products. So the refining industry in itself has corrected itself. You can say the shortfalls are gone and there is surplus available. And new refineries are far more sophisticated, can run dirtier fuels, and can provide Euro 6 level fuels. A lot of investments have gone in. And also we are now diversified across the globe to try and import different types of crude. Having said that, I think upstream we had Mr. Rakesh talking about we are actually import dependent, and now I think about 85% all the feedstock comes from outside. So that's the sort of structure of the industry, how it has progressed. In the sector today, we have private sector and we have joint sector companies like HMEL. HMEL is a collaboration of Mittal and HPCL, an equal partnership, which is jointly controlled. We have equal board membership on the board, and it is jointly controlled. So we have a spectrum of organizations operating in the sector, and it is in a way thriving, you could say, in that sense. But if you look at the economic environment has been quite difficult, and I think some comments were made earlier, and what globally is now mentioned as VUCA, or additional volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, and we see that all the time with lots of changes happening at very short notice, for which nobody could have planned or foreseen or could have sort of covered it. So effectively, if you have more volatility, it means you need to have more slack in the system, and if there is more complexity, you need to have experts around that. Uncertainty means you need to have more data, and ambiguity means you must run some scenario analysis and see how you sort of solve these questions. So if you look at the current environment, we have had huge demand destruction, and just recently BP came out with their report of what is going to be the scenario till 2050. They have run 3 scenarios in which their business as usual, or you can say the best case scenario, is a 10% drop. Their sort of rapid scenario has got a 50% drop, and their aggressive scenario has got a 70% drop. So definitely transition is there. The industry will face huge amounts of transition. We are already starting to see it. There is talk that we've already crossed peak levels of demand, which means perhaps the refining industry will operate in a surplus environment for considerable amount of time. Even now, the current demand in the country is down by about 20%. August to August, if we do the comparison, it's down by 16%. And a cost increase versus demand destruction or revenue destruction is a big difference. I mean, one is that your revenue just goes away, and the other one is the cost escalation. You could manage cost escalations, but revenue destruction is something which none of the oil companies can manage. I don't think that's possible to be managed other than some sort of a support or some sort of methodology. So I think the longer term view is definitely that transition is coming, and we are faced with issues of being ready for the next 10 years or 15 years. On our side, HMEL has already sort of moved into or trying to move into petrochemicals. We are investing into petrochemicals, about $3 billion. Project is already ongoing. But effectively for the future, for the refinery and for the country, obviously it means we must have capital formation. We must have funds available to the refiners to transit this change that is going to come. And this change will come whether we prepare for it or we don't. So in terms of making capital available, it boils down to the basics. How do we ensure that the refineries have more capital? If you look at the current environment, the Singapore margins, as they call it, have been negative, lowest ever in the last 20 years. You look at gas oil cracks, they are like $2.50. If you look at gasoline cracks, they are negative. If you look at aviation fuel, jet kero, it's all negative. So refiners aren't making money. And if you look at the last 3 years margin, it's all downhill. Refineries are sort of in a bind. And I think in this sense, how does the policy formation help? One is that we should consider India as one country in the sense that we can take the industry and optimize it amongst itself. So for example, some refineries produce some fuels or feedstocks which cannot be transferred to other refineries simply because the taxation at the moment sort of hinders it. And effectively, the user has to go and import it, and the seller has to export it. So that is one area where which is sort of doable. Second area is, of course, look at the pricing for the refineries. We have had several representations on the MS pricing, on the gasoline pricing. I think this is the stage where we need to have the funds available in the refinery, and those pricing adjustments need to be done because there are some elements which have not been recognized, and there are some elements which have come up during the last few years and need to be sort of updated. On the longer term, of course, the other option is, of course, tariffs. We used to have a higher tariff protection for the refining industry, and when the global margins were better, I think the argument was that tariffs can be lower. And now when the global margins are down, the tariffs can be readjusted to allow us to have a little more capital so that we can secure. I think other panelists have mentioned about a favorable tax regime, GST, and of course cost of funds, because you require capital as you go ahead in terms of interest, a lower interest cost or additional capital requirements, how to make that available. But having said that, I think there is also a lot of challenges, and challenges bring opportunity. We could look at collaborating amongst the refiners, and I think those policies where we collaborate at the background and compete in the foreground, I cannot often offer any sort of answers to it. But as a country, because you have to compete with global players, it's important that we collaborate. And then, of course, stability in terms of tariff regimes and other regimes, which gives us strength to sort of operate. So I think with those few comments, I would sort of close, saying that we are all faced with transition, and in this new transition, we will require capital. And to meet the capital, there are several ways, several policy changes which the ministry can work with. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Manuji. So next, I would invite, we hardly have some 8 minutes left, and as Darshan was mentioning that at 3 o'clock, Honorable Secretary will join. So our last panelist, I'll welcome Mr. Rajiv Mathur, Executive Director in GAIL. He has significant 35 years of experience in the gas industry. And gas is one segment which at least the current government in last 6-7 years has been giving huge impetus in terms of creating the gas infrastructure where it has not been there. Also creating that policy framework where gas as a percentage of primary fuel contribution goes up from current 6%, and it has been falling ever since. So over to you, Mr. Mathur, on your views, what the policymakers can further do to improve the gas segment, sir. We can hear you, Mr. Mathur. We can hear you.
You can hear?
Yes. Clearly,
Can you hear me?
Hear you. Yes. Please go ahead.
A very good afternoon to all of you. The topic today is Aatma Nirbhar Bharat and role of oil and gas, and I will speak on the downstream gas sector per se. As we all know that the share of gas in the Indian market is about 6% today in the primary energy basket of our country, and the aspiration is to take it to 24% level, which is the global average. But the government is very clear that directionally it wants to take it to 15% and then to the 24%. So in order to take it to 24% or 15%, there are lots of initiatives that are required, and some of them are being taken at the moment. The first is the supply side, where our friend has already talked about how the government policies are encouraging the production and exploration of oil and gas, and through various upstream policies like HELP, OLAP, then there is a CBM policy, there is a discovered small field policy, etc. The objective therefore is to keep on increasing the domestic production as much as possible. But as things stand today, we are importing more than 50% of the natural gas, which till the year 2004 we were actually self-sufficient, should I say. So we have increased the import levels to almost 50 or 55% as of now. But if the policy initiatives that are taken yield results going forward, I'm sure a lot of gas will come forth from the domestic sources, which will be welcome for this sector. And it is required for creation of the big market that we are talking about of natural gas. The second aspect of it is, pricing and liquidity. And for that, the government has made efforts in allowing people to discover the price and to market it within the country in the new policy that they have come out recently for the exploration and producing companies. Also, initiative has been taken for creation of a gas exchange where people could put their produce and buyers could buy and discover the price. So those are some welcome steps. But though, it's just the beginning. A lot of new gas coming from domestic sources, or for that matter imported gas, should be put on such kind of exchanges for the buyers to be able to opt for that and discover the price. And it's going to be a win-win for both the producer as well as the buyer, because they would be realizing what the real price of gas in the country is and what the market is willing to accept. So that is the second part of the gas story. The third one is creation of infrastructure, and a lot of efforts have gone in for creation of a pan-India gas supply infrastructure. A lot of initiatives have been taken by various companies in the past, but recently the government realizing that eastern and northeastern parts of the country do require some kind of an encouragement from their part, have come out with a VGF scheme where they have part funded the capex of creation of infrastructure in eastern India and the northeastern part. So the eastern part where, eastern Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Orissa, etc., will get connected to the national gas grid. There they have given a VGF of about 40% for the infrastructure which is getting created, and this is going to open up new markets in those that part of the country where people would actually experience using natural gas as opposed to other fuels that they have been conventionally used to. In addition, there is a project, Indradhanush gas project, which will cover the northeastern states and Sikkim. There also, government has given a capital grant of 60% for the entire capex of the project, and it's going to be constructed in some 4 or 5 phases. So this will create market in eastern and northeastern India for natural gas, which we believe is a bridging fuel till we reach an economy where only renewables or hydrogen or one of those cleanest fuels will be utilized going forward. The other, area of activity for creation of infrastructure is the CGD area, the creation of CGD networks across India, which will allow experience of use of PNG, CNG, and this fuel to the urban areas. And there already 407 districts and almost 232 geographical areas are going to be covered in phases, and all these have been awarded to various entities who are creating this infrastructure. All told, 70% of the population of India and about 53% of the geographical area will get connected to the natural gas grid. So one India, one grid is what is in the offing, and each one of us has to do our bit for creation of this infrastructure. And it's going to involve some astronomical numbers, some of which are there with me. Some 90,000 crores is what is going to be spent in the CGD infrastructure. Another 1,75,000 crores in creating infrastructure for the network of the stations where CNG or LNG or biogas could be dispensed going forward. So those are huge astronomical numbers which the country intends spending for creation of this kind of infrastructure going forward. And lots of initiatives are being taken by various entities, both in the public and the private sector. Some of the issues which probably are engulfing this sector and which probably needs attention of the government is the bringing in of gas into GST, which has been talked about in a big way in the past also. Creation of something called a single window clearance for people to get expeditious clearances, standardization of restoration charges, reduced GST on the various clean fuels, and policies which encourage the use of gas, for example, in the power sector, integration of RE and gas bundled power, which could be an answer for the power sector standard assets which are there. So I will stop here, and I'll be happy to take questions as we go along. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mathur. So organizers, please let me know when to stop. If Secretary Saab has come, then we can close this session. If not, if there is a bit of delay, then we can direct questions to any particular panelist. Darshan, any guidance on that?
I believe Secretary Saab is joining at 3:05. So I think maybe if anybody has any questions, or if Sunil Kumar ji has any thoughts, or we can take it from there. I'm not
Yeah.
sure where the questions can be seen though.
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with this application.
Yeah,
Uh,
me neither.
yeah.
But,
So
maybe I can use these 2 minutes. Sir, what
yes,
we will
that's it.
do is, at the very least, is we will take this opportunity that all the panelists here, their suggestions, we will compile it, and whatever representations we have made or
Was
new
put up.
discussion points that have happened, we'll at least send that across to you, sir, and for your consideration. And we are, of course, always available for any interaction that's required with the ministry.
And I think Darshan, like, you made initial remarks about particularly, when the ministry is looking at the right of way or deepening the particular skill gap that you pointed out. I think those suggestions will be very useful when the ministry is doing the deliberation and making those particular interventions. Is we know that including petroleum products in GST is a much bigger debate, and probably the other suggestion which has been coming up in last few years since the GST has been introduced is to probably try doing it in phases with probably aviation fuel and gas in the first stage, and then bring in petrol and diesel in the second stage. So some kind of a solution which is at least a beginning in that direction. So that's something also which is in the works. Yeah.
So
So if,
our oil use have. I can just add for the skill part.
Sir,
Our
yes,
oil
sir.
sector PSUs have set up a council. It's called Hydrocarbon Sector Skill Council. All the PSUs have roped into and they have formed a council, and it is headed by Director HR Oil India. He's CEO of this council. And they are taking up these concerns where the lack of skilled manpower for oil and gas sector. So they are developing different qualification packs, and they are developing some short courses for people to be trained to be deployed in oil and gas sector. So I'll advise that you get in touch with whether you can join or you can collaborate. It's up to you, but you can learn what are they doing and what are their canvases. So that will help you also in that. That's my small suggestion.
So
I think skill part.
definitely. So yeah, that's definitely a very good suggestion. Darshan, I will make that connection happen. What we are doing currently for Indian Oil is one of the largest e-learning project for in the oil segment in entire Asia Pacific region. We are doing almost 750,000 modules were availed by the Indian Oil employees during this lockdown period. So, and as Sunil Kumarji rightly said, Mr. Mahapatra is leading that skill council, and it will be useful for the private sector to also join that and make your suggestions. We will make that connection.
no, happily, and I think there is a lot of people training construction labor and all that. So we'll happily introduce them. And now Secretary Saab has joined, so we'll sort of take the opportunity to bring him in as well. And Prabji has also joined from the next session. So I thank you very much, sir. Sunil Kumarji, thank you so much. Esteemed panelists, Debashish, thank you as well. And then we'll move over to the next panel.
Yeah, over to you, Darshan. All the best with your
Thank you.
next session. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Tarun Kapoor ji, sir, is our audio clear to you? Sir, can you hear us? I don't know if Secretary Saab can hear us. Prabji, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, we'll just check. Yeah. Sir, can you hear us? I think he's reconnecting. I think his audio is not connected yet.
Sir, he will join in 5 minutes. So, we have to wait for 5 minutes only, sir. But he started his PC.
Okay, 1 second. I think he's just joining again.
5 minutes, 5 minutes.
Sure.
Hello, Secretary Office, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now. There was some problem earlier. So
Yes, sir. Sir, please switch on your webcam, sir.
Perfect. Hello, sir, and welcome to the program. Thank you so much for coming. And I wanted to just take this opportunity to welcome the Tarun Kapoor ji, Secretary Petroleum, and Prabdas ji, who's also a member of our ASSOCHAM Hydrocarbons Committee and leading HMEL. So, for this interactive session. Sir, thank you so much once again. And we've taken this opportunity to discuss the potential of the oil and gas sector and its role in Aatma Nirbhar Bharat. And fortunately, the Joint Secretary Refining was here, and he was telling us about some of the measures being taken by the government, especially when it comes to a PSU capex plan and a government capex plan, and that's something really exciting. I think there are some areas where we think further enhancement can happen to there are some areas that are going through a very difficult time because oil and gas prices, there has been huge volatility in those prices. So I think there is some amount of regulatory assistance that we need, in managing volatility, but also in terms of the assistance we need from the Finance Ministry and the RBI, both in terms of liquidity and some regulatory assistance. So, and I'm sure Prabji will talk a lot more about those particular issues, because those issues are not unique to refining. They affect all oil and gas capex players as well. And I think that just like a lot of industries were identified by the KV Kamath committee, I think oil and gas really has been missed out as a block that needs some kind of unique assistance as well. So just on the point of volatility, I think we need some slightly more specific measures, and we were hoping for our friends from Nayara to be here, who are quite vocal about that. But overall, sir, the assistance that's needed is in purchasing of crude and selling off the end price. And I think there are some tax measures, but there are some hedging measures also that entities require. And we will take this opportunity after this session to send you a bit of a note and a paper on that particular area of assistance that can help the refiners, LNG players, and other companies who buy imported crude or imported LNG and sell it into the domestic market for further assistance. So a third area where which we discussed in a bit of the previous session relates to skilling. We still struggle from huge shortage of skilled manpower in the oil and gas development sector. Again, it was pointed out that the PSUs have put together a hydrocarbon skilling council. I think we need some sort of participation from the private sector as well in that hydrocarbon skilling council, because we need the people and we have also skilled manpower, and we should mandate training of trainers across the country so we can all benefit from that area as well in this growth story. So two more areas I just thought I'll touch upon. We are encouraged that the ministry is taking up the Petroleum and Mineral Pipelines Act reform. So getting ROUs is a disaster and is one of the biggest risk creators for cross-country pipeline projects of any kind, whether it's product, whether it's gas, whether it is CGD. So this reform in PNMP Act is critical, and we have made some representations also as ASSOCHAM, and I will resend those to you all because we are kind of thankful that the ministry is taking it up, but it is, I can't emphasize enough the importance of that. So two areas, probably the biggest being GST. I know it's a hot potato, and I keep saying that, look, we need something done about it, sir. Whether it is done in phases, whether it is done in trials, whether it is done in parts. The oil sector and gas sector is suffering in huge terms because this GST transition is not happening. The current issues between center and state continue to give me less and less hope. And we hope, sir, that you can help us, shed some light on how that roadmap could look a little more positive. And last, sir, I just wanted to talk about the fact that, and this is an open canvas, sir. We'll be happy to hear from you, take suggestions from the audience. But the last bit, sir, we are very encouraged with the government signals on opening up two areas, gas retail as well as fuel retail. I think both oil and gas retail are seeing an opening up. It is a policy opening up, so there's a statement made, and then there are measures being taken. And I think a large number of measures are being taken to take care of trying to create these new downstream retail outlets, create new CGD players, open up gas marketing, focus on creating of a transmission system operator by the regulator, unbundling of GAIL. There's a whole bunch of things that are happening across the board, and we are excited by that. So, sir, we have too many issues and too little time, but we'd be happy to, hear from you, from Prabji, in terms of the various areas that we can talk about. I'd like to maybe, sir, however you'd like it. If you'd like to go first, we can do that. If Prabji would like to mention his list of points and you want to address them together, this is an open canvas for you, sir.
So I think I'll come in first because otherwise all the difficult questions will come in from you might as well preempt that.
Sir,
but then I'll have to leave in about 15 minutes. So Thank you very much, and thank you ASSOCHAM for organizing this on a very appropriate topic. And you are helping us because we want the country to move forward on Aatma Nirbhar Bharat, to have more and more manufacturing come into the country, to look at areas where we could reduce imports and create more business opportunities in India. So we know that right now the sector is a bit stressed because of low oil price, and then the way the pricing formula at various stages is all linked to international price. So be it the upstream sector where the companies are into oil exploration and production, there also the price they get is linked to the international crude price. And then refineries, they are looking at cracks. Cracks are low. Earlier they were negative. Now they are coming to a little bit positive. And then again, in the last few days, again they've the diesel crack had moved to more than $5, but now again it's come down. So that area again becomes tight, and then the downstream also is also a little bit tight. But then the market, I cannot say how it will behave in the future, but because we are linked to the international price and the international market is like that, so if we try to change the formula drastically, then we are moving away from open or free pricing, and that's also not good for the sector. So we don't want to do that. But then on various other fronts, wherever we can help, things like taxes, things like giving some concessions on certain maybe cess or certain other things, we are trying to take up with finance ministry. But because at this stage finances of the country are also stressed, so therefore probably the finance ministry doesn't want to touch on anything at this stage, because they then feel that then they open a Pandora's box and all the sectors are stressed. It's not just oil, but almost across the board, all types of businesses are stressed. So everyone wants concession, everyone wants some relief. Some relief government is giving, but then maybe the kind of relief which the industry seeks, that has not come forth so far. But we will keep trying in any case. And at our level, whatever relief we can give, we are working on that. So maybe extending timelines wherever possible, trying to reduce penalties, whatever is possible within the ministry, that of course we are looking at and we will do. So you also raised this issue of non-availability of skilled manpower. So the other day I was reviewing this skill council work in this sector, and I was also surprised to see that the skill council here is also training persons in a lot of other sectors, not just oil and gas. And I was asking that is it that you don't have enough requirement in this sector? Why are you training in other areas?
Voice finished. We can't hear you, sir.
Sir, we lost your audio, sir. So we lost your audio. 1 minute.
Yeah, now we can hear.
Yeah, is it okay now?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think something went wrong. So we are working on strengthening the skill council in this sector, and we will have to involve the private sector also in a big way. And we will shortly hold meetings where we will get the private sector in. Now on right of way and the act which we are trying to amend, one issue which had come up was on the courts intervening to order in some cases that full compensation be paid. Whereas we don't take the land, we just use the land and let the owner keep the land, and we generally pay only a part of the price of the land, And otherwise, if you have to acquire in the act, then in rural areas you have to pay 4 times the price of the land. So on that, there is one little amendment which is required. So we've moved for that amendment. Hopefully, in the next Parliament session, we should be able to take it to Parliament and get that done. So that will be some relief. And otherwise, right of way is an important issue in all sectors. I've worked in power sector, I've worked in other sectors, and it's an issue in all the sectors, because generally people will get organized, they will try to agitate, and fair compensation has to be paid. We don't deny that, but sometimes some extortion also takes place, which has to be avoided, because if someone from the industry pays up more than what is due, then others also suffer. So when I was in the power sector, there also, whenever I used to talk to the industry, I used to tell them that please don't use shortcuts, because then you spoil the whole the game for everyone. Just follow the rules, and then everyone would be happy. So next, you talked about GST. So GST is again an area where we've been trying to push this, at least to get it in gas, natural gas at the earliest, and hopefully something should come out quite soon. Though again, probably government wants to delay slightly before it is taken to the GST Council, and I think at the right time it will be placed before GST Council, because we need support from the states also to get it through in GST Council. But for natural gas, it should happen very soon. Otherwise, we know that it's creating problems. Even for refineries, there is this issue of the multiple products that come out. So that issue also we would get it sorted out quite soon. We've already taken up with the finance ministry, and we've discussed it several times with them. So that should also get cleared quite soon. Then on opening of gas retail and fuel retail, so already government has a policy where the net worth required to enter into retail of petrol and diesel has been brought down to 250 crores, but we've not got too many applications yet. We just have one application which is probably going to get sanctioned, and maybe a few inquiries. So I think this is a good area for companies who are into refining or maybe into other parts of the value chain to come into retail, and the sector is open. It's very easy to take a license. Rather, at this stage, government is very keen to give a license. So whoever applies, we would be very happy to give a license at the earliest, and we would like to see more private sector retail outlets to open in the country. As far as gas is concerned, while CNG retailing through outlets is also being encouraged, but then in the GAs which were awarded, there is marketing exclusivity for 8 years in some places and 5 years in some places, so that period is over in several of the areas, and now PNGRB is coming up with guidelines so that the others who want to enter, they can also enter. They would be able to use the infrastructure to the extent of 25% and get into all areas, which means that right from supplying to the commercial consumers to industrial consumers and even CNG and PNG. So there also we would like the private sector to come in a big way, even in established areas like, say, for example, Delhi, so that the customer has some choice. And otherwise also we want this sector to open up. We want more players in the upstream side. Right now, ONGC and OIL dominate the scene. The private players are very few. We want at least, I've been telling my officers that at least the upstream side, we would like to see 20-25 strong companies to come up in the upstream sector, so that in India itself we have companies who have the capabilities to take on the blocks whenever they are offered. And because now we have very good data also, so it should become much easier for companies to bid and for companies to enter the upstream sector. The risk would gradually keep reducing, because as we go for more surveys and as we go for more analysis through DGH, so whoever is bidding would have much more certainty and much more data already available, and therefore decision making would become much easier. So for the private sector to come into the oil and gas, I would just list out 3-4 very prominent and very important areas. One is upstream, where there is a lot of scope, and recently whatever surveys we've done, we feel that India does have quite good resource. And second sector is manufacturing, because government wants the oil companies, be it government sector, private sector, to take all their requirements of components and material from within India. And what we find is that right now there are large number of components which are imported. Gradually, we want that they should be made in India, and therefore there is a ready market available. Then the next sector is biofuels, where again there is a ready market. All we have to do is reduce our imports and try to get as much of biofuels as possible from within the country. And then, of course, there's the midstream and the downstream. So ample area for business in this campaign on Aatma Nirbhar Bharat, and we welcome the private sector to come in. Thank you.
Sorry.
I think
sir,
something
thank you
went
so
wrong
much,
again.
sir. No, sir. Thank you so much. Prabji, over to you. Because I know sir's time is limited. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Honorable Secretary, Mr. Tarun Kapoor, Mr. Darshan Hiranandani. I was very impressed with the way our secretary has covered the sectors, all upstream, downstream, gas, everything, and what government is doing. Thank you very much for taking all the initiative for keeping the sector alive. As you rightly said, we are in a great difficulty, but with your initiatives and the way you have taken up the matter with other ministries, I'm sure that we will come out of this. So thank you very much for taking all these initiatives. Let me start with a positive thing. Aatma Nirbhar Bharat, factory for the world, and petroleum sector can really demonstrate with full honor that we are doing so. We are exporter of petrol and diesel. We export some 50-60 million ton of petrol and diesel, $40-45 billion. We are the largest. This is the largest mercantile export in the country. We are the third largest. We are the first largest exporter of this product. So we service the world. So we should be. We are very proud of it. And how did it happen? 20 years back, we were importing. We were importing petrol, and you all will recall when we were young, and when I was young SDO, I used to cut slips that, so much of petrol to be given or diesel to be given. From there, we have come to a surplus. What happened? Now, I was analyzing 2-3 things, simple thing. Just delicense, deregulate the sector. We just deregulated, delicensed, no control. And more importantly, there is no control on the feedstock or the finished product. And there is a formula, but it is not controlled by government. People can export. So suddenly they were opening up. Suddenly there was deregulation. Previously, all crude which were coming into the country was through OCC, through IOC. All gone. And suddenly we are in the position where we were importing, we are exporting. We also did some benefit, custom duty benefit to the refineries. Previously the margins were, the refinery, the cracks were, the custom duty protection was 10%, which has now come to 2%. So people saw opportunity and they came in. The next sector for us is the petrochemical sector. And all the oil companies are doing it. lakh crore is being invested in this sector. If the freedom is given, we are currently importing 1 lakh crore of polyethylene, polypropylene. This is the area to concentrate now. All the refineries can downstream can do it, and very soon we can be a factory of the world as far as petrochemical product is concerned. Just few things to be done. Deregulate, which is already there. De-license is already there. Just a duty protection of 5%, and things will overnight change. So that's one suggestion. If we really want to make change from import of polyethylene and polypropylene to a major exporter, and we require to just meet our country requirement every one cracker, which is costing $3 or $4 billion every year. So that's the demand. So that's one thing I thought I'll convey to the panel, the panelists and the audiences. Secretary Saab has already touched upon on the manufacturing, and I was telling everybody that we are building a petrochemical product of 22,000 crore, and hardly 2,500 crore is being imported. There are 1,300 equipment. There are 2 lakh flanges, 5 lakh fittings, 2,500 kilometer of pipes of various size, various material. All are available in India. That's what we are very proud of. That India can and has been making all the things. Little bit boost, and the industry has to come. I mean, everything we can't ask government to do. The players are very small. They have to become big. We have to get rid of this PTR concept, the proven track record. Unless people really manufacture that particular type of product for so many days and so many days of running, and we don't buy. We have to relax. We have to be confident of ourselves, our factories. This is the factory. The industry has to do among themselves to rely on Indian products, and things will change. Out of 2,500, 1,000 was only the license fee, which I don't think that we should be working now. But the others are compressor and extruders and very few products, and India can make it. So that's the idea on that. But again, the services sector is the one we should be concentrating on. There is a lot of opportunities, and lot of people are working on that. But little bit of change in a contract, which industry has to do. Industry has to do it themselves. That we have to believe in our partners, in our contractors, and things will overnight change. So that's the point on Aatma Nirbhar Bharat. And Secretary Saab has already covered all the area which I was supposed to cover. Request him, is already covered GST, etc., etc. 2-3 things which really changed the way people look at India. And one of the every meeting I go, land is a big issue. Everywhere land is a big issue, and we don't get land and things like that. I don't find any problem. Only thing one year to do, only one thing, the CLU business. If I am buying a land, land is available in plenty. I have bought at least 700 acres of land from private sector, no problem at all. Because I'm in Punjab, I know people in Punjab government, I get it conversion, no problem. But for a general person or industries who is setting up, this change of land use becomes a major issue. If this can be taken off, and this is not required at all. This was British legacy. Banks won't give loan unless there is a conversion. Just tell banks you can give loan on agricultural land, the land problem will be over. That's one thing which I thought I'll bring it here. The another very simple thing, and government is very seriously working on this, is decriminalization of various acts. The 26 acts are being converted into 4 courts of labor courts, and there is a move to make it decriminalized, like in the case of Companies Act. Most of the things are on civil nature or compoundable nature. But still, I was going through the finer prints of the code, and there are hidden ways of getting into this criminalization. So if that can be looked into very seriously, if any help is required, we have done a lot of study on that. If that can be done, that will really change the way people look at Indian industry and Indian labor laws very seriously. I will stop here. Thank you. You are on mute.
Prabji, thank you so much. Prabji, thank you so much. And always, whenever I hear from you, lots of gems come out. Sir, as you know, you're probably not aware, but Prabji and a few others we have a great hydrocarbons committee in ASSOCHAM, and we take liberties to make a lot of representations. We do it independently, we do it separately as companies as well. But there are all areas that all the members and constituents of ours are very passionate about assisting in change. So where some policy level pushes are required, we are equally there to convince other people, and we are ambassadors of the country. When we go around the world, we deal with all companies from everywhere. And I think this interaction with government and these few changes of policy and these speaking points, we'd love to also get and be able to convey to our members about a lot of these changes happening in an organized way, and some thoughts of where we can participate with government in policy. Because telling our members who are in India and telling foreign capital and foreign technology and foreign know-how to come to India, because there is demand, for example, as Prabji mentioned, to come and be in India, transfer technology and create locally, is something that we'd love to work with the government to see how we can mutually and symbiotically work towards the same objectives. So with that, I wanted to thank you so very much for coming, joining, giving us a patient ear, and enlightening us with what's happening. And we'll take this. We'll take this opportunity to keep engaging with you moving ahead. Sir, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Prabji. Yes. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you so much. Thank you.